I want to say something really, really careful because this matters. A conversation is happening in our country right now about housing, about corporations being able to buy homes and whether they should be allowed to do that at all. And my first instinct is no, because the pain this is causing, and the pain is real. Young families are locked out, rents rising faster than wages, communities hollowed out, and you have governments all around the world who are pushing for you will own nothing and you'll like it, meaning somebody owns everything. You're just a constant renter. You're a serf. Yesterday, Donald Trump said we should pass a law that will ban corporations from buying houses. And at first, I was like, yes, because the problem is real. Finally, somebody is recognizing this problem. But every libertarian bone in me went, no, wait. Because banning ownership is not freedom. It's just not. What is the difference between Mamdani saying you're going to have a different relationship? If you're white, you're going to have a different relationship with ownership than you've had before because you're not going to be able to buy things that others can buy. That's not a free society. Once you decide who can own property, you've crossed a line that history tells us is not easily crossed back in the other direction. But here's the part that we have to be honest with ourselves about, because pretending otherwise is honestly how we lose the country. What is happening in our country right now is not a free market. You can look at it that way. If you squint really, really hard and lie to yourself every day, you can go, yeah, we're a capitalist country. It's a free market. It's not. And until we admit that, we will just put Band-Aids on and we will start making decisions that are not right for a free people. We've built something entirely different from the free market. Anybody who was born in, past 2000, you've never lived under a free market. You don't know what it's like. Especially if your first memories are from 2008 plus. The free market is gone. Here's what a free market does. A free market, a real market, risk matters. In a real market, price signals mean something. You can look at a corporation's paperwork and you can go, oh, I see what's going on here. Nope, that stock's going to go down because of this X, Y, and Z. But when X, Y, and Z show really bad news and the stock goes up, you're not in a real market, okay? In a real market, if you make a bad bet, you lose. But that's not what's happening, at least not at the corporate level, okay? That's not happening in housing. Housing has been transformed into a financial instrument. It's not about a house for a family. It's about a financial instrument. And this isn't by accident. This is policy. It comes from years of zero interest rates, trillions of cheap dollars, government-backed mortgages, pipelines that are all securitized, regulatory advantages that favor the size or the lawyers and the leverage that you don't have access to. Our federal government didn't just invite Wall Street into housing. It pulled it by the collar and said, you are doing these things because it's good for our reelection, and I'll protect you if there's a problem. That's not a free market. So when a hedge fund goes in and buys 10,000 single-family homes, competing against first-time buyers, that's not capitalism. It's not, because they don't have any risk. That's state-distorted concentration of capital. Then when the government turns around and says, you know what, this is out of control, we have to ban ownership. That's not a solution. It'll feel good. It felt good to me yesterday when he said that. I was like, yes, finally. It'll feel good, but it's not really a solution. That's like the state breaking your leg and then saying, here, I got a wheelchair for you. Wait, you're the one who broke my leg. How about we stop breaking people's legs instead of giving them wheelchairs? The problem is not corporate ownership. The problem is privileged ownership. The problem is when government quietly rigs the game. We saw this in 2008. When a government socializes the losses and all the gains are privatized. You win, you keep the money. You lose, I'm going to spread that to the taxpayer. That's not free market. That's rigging. When financial instruments are guaranteed because you're large, you've got a huge system behind you, you've got a lot of money. When that is guaranteed for the large and the small guy can't afford it, then you've rigged the game again. Again, when risk is absorbed by you, but profit is captured by the institution. That's not liberty. That's not capitalism. That's corporatism. And, people used to say, oh, the republics are just for the corporations. I'm not for the corporations. I don't like corporatism. I don't like fascism. That's a public-private partnership. That is literally what the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and Joe Biden was talking about in speech after speech. We're going to have a public-private partnership. That is the literal definition of fascism. Corporatism leads to someplace really, really dark that we don't want to go to. Once people are priced out of ownership, once property becomes something that you can only rent from institutions. Remember, communism, the government just takes it all and they tell you where you're going to live. And everybody gets a house, but depends on how popular you are with the state. Okay? That's communism. Fascism is when the government gets into bed with giant corporations and the corporations are allowed to own everything, but only under the direction of the government. They play ball with the government. And again, in fascism, you really don't own anything. Everybody else owns something and you don't. Once property is something that you only rent from institutions, then you've changed the relationship between the citizen and the state. You're no longer independent. You're no longer rooted. You're no longer secure in anything. You're managed. And that's what we've been fighting against. I have been. I don't want to be managed by the progressives. I don't want to be managed by the World Economic Forum. I don't want to be managed by a conservative who believes people should be managed. That's when all of the warning lights should start going off. This week we have dealt with constitutional issues over and over and over again. Sometimes they cut your way. Sometimes the Constitution comes in and says, no, that would be a violation and you just can't do that. And you're like, crap, because that's an easy solution. But that's not who we are. We are not a country that believes in easy solutions. We look for the right solution. There are really powerful global voices who are speaking openly about a future where ownership is obsolete, where everything is nothing but a service, and where permanence is replaced with permission. Stakeholder capitalism comes to mind. Efficiency, sustainability comes to mind. But history has another word for that, and that is feudalism. The serfs that don't own their land. The lords of the manor own everything, and you live at the pleasure of the lords. I am not willing to sit here and watch or help or remain quiet if America takes a single sleepwalk step back into feudalism. Not 1 inch goes that way. And especially not because you're afraid to tell the truth or you're afraid to be unpopular. Whatever. So what is the truth? Here is the truth. You don't fix a rigged market by banning ownership. You fix it by removing the rigging. We lose, if you believe in the Constitution, you lose by denying that corporations are coming in and buying housing, and there's a shortage of housing, and a lot of it is happening because of things that have been rigged, and the government getting into bed with all these corporations. If we deny that that's happening, if we say, no, the Constitution won't allow you to do that, but you don't offer a solution, you lose. Because the problem is real. So how do you fix it? 1, no more government backstops for bulk buying of anything. No. The government has there's no backstop for you. If an institution wants to buy 10,000 homes, fine. But you do it with real rates, real risks, real consequences. You get no hidden guarantees, no taxpayer insurance, no socialized downside. You lose, and you go out of business, just like I would with one house. Second, tax neutrality. There should be no special depreciation tricks, no accelerated write-offs, no advantages that only exist at scale. If the average person can't get it, you shouldn't get it because you have scale. If you rent a house, you play by the same rules. I don't care if you own one house or 1,000 houses or 10,000 houses. And here's the big one. Third, zoning laws. We have to unleash supply. Zoning laws, minimum lot sizes, endless environmental reviews, parking mandates. All of this is written for a different century, honestly. And they're artificial constraints that are strangling housing and protecting the incumbents. They benefit the large and they punish the young. If supply were actually allowed to respond, hoarding wouldn't work as a strategy. Last one, watch concentration, not ownership. Antitrusts exist for a reason. When any entity, whether it's corporate or otherwise, begins to dominate a regional housing market, that's, again, not freedom, that's control. No one can dominate that. That's antitrust, transparency, reporting, friction as concentration rises, not bounds, not bans, but boundaries. What we should be defending is really simple and non-negotiable. Property ownership must be easier for citizens than it is for institutions, and right now it's the other way around. Not forbidden to institutions, just no longer privileged. You shouldn't have any of these privileges. If I don't get those privileges, you shouldn't get those privileges. And we should defend the free market, but don't defend this because this is not the free market. And if you're defending this as the free market, nobody who has never lived under the free market will go your way. Because this is not the free market. This is all rigged. It's all a game, and we all know it. So don't even suggest that this is a free market. If the left solves things by banning things and banning ownership, they'll destroy the foundation of the republic. They'll destroy the free market. And that's not a small issue. It's not about housing. It's whether the American experiment rooted in you, the private citizen, the private property owner, the one who has personal sovereignty, whether that continues or not, or we just trade it quietly away for managed comfort. The warmth of collectivism and permanent rent. I won't go there. I'm glad he addressed it. I'm glad he said it has to be a law. But I won't go there. I want laws that remove the rigging of this system.